Good morning. Thank you very much for coming for today's General Assembly. As we announced, we are hearing from one of our U.S. guests today, and he will be talking to us about biblical creativity as mission. He is the Empower Team Lead of the Missions Resource Network. So without much ado, let's welcome Mr. Jarboe.
Thank you. Good morning. It is a joy to be with you. I'm only here a very short time, but you can tell a lot of a people, of a group, of a college just by observing. And some of the things that I observe about you that have been very encouraging to me is your sincerity in your prayers. I pay attention to how people pray, mainly not to judge, but to learn from them. Because that's one of the areas that I want to grow in is praying to God, because I know that without Him I am nothing. That there is nothing I can do without the power of Jesus Christ within me. Nothing of importance or nothing that is godly can I do without Him. And I hear from your prayers this respect for God, of honoring and adoring and giving Him praise, which I really appreciate. And then the other thing that I have noticed in some of your prayers are very sincere in asking for what you want God to do around you, through you, and in this world around you. And as you go through college here, I hope that you will continue that active prayer life and letting God lead and guide you. I really want to thank your president, your provost, for this opportunity and others to be with you. I was challenged by this topic of biblical creativity as missions. And I am very, very encouraged to be able to do that. You helped me by assigning me this topic. So I want to dive into what I have to share. Biblical creativity as missions. I think we need to start, whoops, went too far. Yes, we start with this basic, but it's very foundational. That God is a creative God. In Genesis chapter 1, verse 23, and really from the beginning, don't you love the creation? Is out of nothing, He created. And after He created it, the light, the day, the night, the animals, man. After every time that He created something, He said, that's good. That's good. I like that. And I think it's very significant that if you read about Genesis 1:26, God said, let us make mankind in our image, in our likeness, so they may rule over the fish of the sea, the birds of the sky, and over the livestock, and over the animals, and all the creatures that move around the ground. So God created mankind in His image. That means if we serve a creative God, that the very best part of us is creative like Him, because we were created in His image. Now I know through sin and through bad mistakes and bad choices, we have corrupted that image. But through Jesus Christ, it is being restored day by day as we walk with Him and submit to Him and obey Him. I love Psalms 139 because it says that God created, the psalmist is writing and said, you created my inmost being. You knit me together as in my mother's womb. I praise you because I am fearlessly and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. I know that full well. I used to have a mentor named Richard that I might tell you about him later. And he was from West Texas. And West Texas, or Texans, talk very plainly. They don't talk with much elegance. And he just said that he would always say, God doesn't make junk. God doesn't make junk. And if God made you, the world wants to tell you you're no good. The world wants to tell you you're not worth it. You're not smart enough. You're not bright enough. You're not good enough. That's what Satan wants to tell you. But that's not the message that God gives you. God gives you this message of, I made you in my image. And I want you to live as salt and light in this world. I want you to live as my children in this world. He wants us to live up to that creation that we have. I don't consider myself a very creative person. I think I'm rather boring, actually. I'm not an artist. I'm not a writer, a good one, in fact. I can't write very well. But I'm not an artist. I'm not a musician. I don't see that I'm a very creative person. But as I prepared and listened to God through this lesson, it was like, we all are creative. We just have to discover it. If we've been created by a creative God, He's made us very unique, very different, very excitingly different. Have you ever been around somebody that they just talk too loud? They talk too much. They irritate you. And we don't like them. But they're a child of God. And they're a creative individual just like you. And if God made this world and made all of us just the same, how boring would that be? If all of us were made like me, we would be in great trouble. You know, we couldn't do much of anything. So the diversity is the power. So I just want to share with you a few thoughts that came from Scripture, but also came from my experience of how can I develop my creativity. Because I'm convinced by preparing for this lesson, I need to develop my creativity. It's there. It's somewhere there. It's hidden. So how do I develop my creativity? I want to encourage you that first and foremost, we need to be who God has created us to be. We are very diverse, and His body is very diverse. And He says in Romans chapter 12, by the grace given me, I say to every one of you, don't think of yourself more highly than you ought to think. That's pride. That's self-centeredness. And we can't be very creative for the good of humanity if we're only thinking about ourselves. Because that kind of limits how we think, doesn't it? But He said, don't think of yourself too highly, but rather think of yourself with sober judgment in accordance with the faith God has distributed to each of you. For just as each of us have one body, we have many members, and members don't have the same function. So in Christ, though many form one body, each member belongs to the other. And he goes on to talk about spiritual gifts. He goes on to talk about how God gifted us. If you're a Christian, you have received the Spirit of God. The Spirit of God has given you gifts, spiritual gifts that aren't natural talents. Some of us, all of us have natural talents. And they may ask me, Puppy, what's something you can do that others can't do? I said, well, I don't know that all of people can't do this. But I touch my tongue with my nose with my tongue. That's not very encouraging, I know. But we all have gifts. We all have skills. But God has gifted each one of us. He says, I want to use you in my kingdom, and here are gifts that are not yours. They're given by me, God says, for you to steward and use well. So be who you are. Maybe perhaps this is too confessional, but I spent way too much time of my life and my ministry trying to be somebody who I'm not. Have you ever done that? You see somebody that you think, man, he's a great speaker. I want to be like him. So you try to imitate him or her. Or she's so beautiful. She's so brilliant. She's got words that just come off of the page. Stop trying to compare yourself with others. You are unique. You were created in the image of God. You have gifts and skills. Lean into those. When I was in college, I was very shy. And I couldn't get a date for a long time because I didn't have enough of the courage to ask. But I had a friend who would have a date every weekend. He would always be with some girl. You have those here? That was my friend. That was my friend. And so I would kind of hang with him to try to get in the right group. And he still is my friend. But we're very different. And I learned after a long time just to lean in. I didn't have to be like Bill. I didn't have to be like him. I didn't have to be like her. I just need to be me, the way that God has created me. So find your gifts. Try new things. Experiment with new things. Take risk, and we'll talk about that later. Take risk and try new things. You're at an age that it still remains to be seen how God is going to use you. You have this thought in your mind of how this is going to work out, what you're going to graduate with, and where you're going to go and what you're going to do. That is good. You need to have plans and dreams. But you always need to be alert to how God is guiding you and leading you. When I look back on my life, there are several things that I wanted, and I worked hard for them, but God didn't give those things to me. And as I look back now, it's like he gave me what I needed. So be who you are. Be who God created you. And then, this may sound very strange to you, but ask for what you want. When you graduate, what do you want to have? What do you want to have accomplished? What are the next steps that you want to take in your life? Dream those dreams. Dream the impossible dreams. I was taught that early in life, and I'm really grateful that I did, because my mind was kind of, well, if I can just survive today, if I can just pass that test. But if you dream of what it could be like, when you graduate here, what would be an impossible dream that would just be brilliant? Would be something that would be like, that would build the kingdom. That would help me more than anything else. But what does your earthly mind say? What does your fearful mind say? I can't do that. That's too hard. I'm not like that person. So dream the dream. Ephesians chapter 3 says that God is able to do exceeding abundantly beyond all that we can ask or imagine, according to his power that is at work within us. You see, it's his power, and that's the most important thing, is submitting to God, but he gives you the right to dream the dreams. And I think God listens to our kingdom dreams sometimes. Or he listens to our dreams sometimes and he says, I think you're thinking more about yourself than you are me, God may say. And then he may hear our kingdom dreams and say, those are way too small. Dream bigger. So ask God for what you want. Mark chapter 10. And do you realize that Jesus asked over 300 questions in the New Testament? And we'll come back to that in a little bit. But he also let people ask him questions, and he asked them questions. So this is the story of Bartimaeus. And he was sitting by the roadside begging. And Jesus came. And he heard that Jesus was on the road, but he was blind Bartimaeus. Isn't that interesting? If at the top of my Bible in that section, it says the healing of blind Bartimaeus. He's no longer blind. Why do we call him blind Bartimaeus? Well, he was blind at that time, I understand. But don't let labels or failures keep you from trying. And you know the story that he started shouting, Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. Heal me. Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. And he kept going on and on and on. And people were saying, be quiet, be quiet. But he was bold enough to ask for what he wanted. And Jesus said, come here. Now, a blind man's in front of Jesus. A blind man's in front of Jesus. Can you hear me? A blind man is in front of Jesus. This is really, I'm going to be projecting my voice, and it's going to pop on, so get ready a minute, okay? But to save time, okay, that there's this blind man that everybody knows is blind. And Jesus asked him this question. What do you want me to do for you? Doesn't that seem strange? Doesn't it seem ridiculous? Well, why are you asking, Jesus? I want to see. He asked the leper the same question. What do you want me to do for you? I think that's significant. Jesus gives you the right to say, Jesus, this is what I want. Now, he's not after the, I want $1 million, I want this, I want that, I want all of those things, particularly when they're selfish. But if they're kingdom wants, he wants to hear that. So think about, what do you want in life? Be creative. If you could think of the impossible things, ask for what you want. And these may be very strange to you, but I think another thing is learn to listen well. Learn to listen well. Well, Jay, what does learning or listening have to do with being creative? James says, my dear brothers and sisters, take note of this. Everyone should be quick to listen, slow to speak, and slow to become angry. Think about how much you talk during a day and compare it to how much you listen. Now, you're sitting in classes, so you may be listening more than you're talking. I understand, because you're listening to lectures. But listen for what's in your heart and God has given in your heart. Listen for the cries of people in the world that are wanting something different. And maybe you may just come up with some creative idea of meeting those needs that you are listening to. Listening to God, of where is God leading me? What does God say to me through His Word? And listening to God is very, very important. So learn to listen well. Listening is a skill. Some people say, I don't listen well. And I'm not always this rude with them. But sometimes I say, well, that's your choice of how much you listen. Because listening is a skill, and a skill can be learned. So grow in your listening skill of the Bible, of what you see around you. When I went to a school, there was a very wise man, and we would have general assemblies like you. And one Friday a month, he would get into the pulpit or the stand before the assembly, and he would just take the newspaper. And he would start going through the newspaper articles that he saw there and asking the question, what might God be doing through that event in history? What might be God trying to accomplish through that history? So learn to listen well. The next thing that I would encourage you to do is be curious. You probably didn't have this here, but when I was growing up, and there was this little children's book, Curious George, that he was a Bible or a character for children's books, that he was so curious and always getting in trouble because he was so curious. Be curious and ask God the discovery questions. Asking powerful questions is going to give you powerful insights that you may not have. Ask powerful questions. I am a leadership coach, and so one of the things I love to do is listen well and ask questions. And I know when I ask a powerful question, this is what happens. If I ask a powerful question, you know what I see in the person I'm talking to? They stop. They may look up to the right or to the left or down, and they'll genuinely say, that's a good question. And they have to think about it. The answers that you're looking for are in Christ. And the answers that you're looking for is in the Spirit of God within you if you're a Christian. And the answers are in the Bible and inside of you if you've read and studied. And so search, discover, think. Think about the impossible. Ask yourself strange questions. Ask yourself difficult questions, or get a friend to do that. And then the next thing that I want to get to is make action steps. Make action steps and be willing to fail. That second one's the hardest for me. James chapter 2, James is writing about Father Abraham, saying, wasn't he considered righteous for what he did when he offered his son Isaac on the altar? He says, you see that his faith and his actions were working together, and his faith was made complete by what he did. So his faith and his actions were working together. So I want to challenge you to make action steps. This week, what do you need to accomplish? And set your action steps to say, this is what I need to accomplish. This is what I will do, when I will do it, and I'll do it by this time, and then share it with someone. And that's built-in accountability, because they're going to come back and say, you know, you mentioned something about what you wanted to do. How did that work out? So and how many of you, I took this slide out because of time, but how many of you have heard of SMART goals? S-M-A-R-T. That's all over the world. Make SMART goals of specific goals. Not just, I want to be a better person. I want to have more money. I want to make an A. Your instructors, your faculty will tell you to make that good mark. That's A is what we use in the States. You probably use something else, I'm sure. Is that what people will say is that we just can't wish that. There's homework that I need to do. There's reading that I need to do. There are small steps to get me to that big goal. Focus on those small steps, the significant activities. Be specific. Make sure it's measurable. I will do this by when, and what's the result that you want to get. Make sure that it's attainable. It's a stretch, but it's not out of your reach. And if you learn to make smart goals, specific, measurable, actionable, or attainable, they're relevant or realistic. I've heard two different words used there. That they are realistic or they're relevant, and they're time bound. Look it up if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's easy to find. If you develop a habit, you will be of making goals. You will become a creative person, I believe. Well, I had it there. I didn't know it. I thought I took it out. There it is. Specific, clear, unambiguous, measurable. You can observe the completion. Obtainable. It's possible, yet it's a stretch. It's relevant, and it's meaningful for you. You know, a lot of times we decide we want to do something, but it's not relevant. It doesn't help. It's not helpful. It just is something we think we ought to do. So make sure that they're meaningful for you and time limited according that you can accomplish. And this is perhaps the most important thing, is follow up. Don't go alone. And don't give up. Hebrews chapter 10 says, "And let us consider how we may spur one another on toward love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the day more as you see the day approaching." We need one another. And you live in a communal society. What is the African saying that is very popular? If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together with others. I prefer to go far in life, and I believe I need others. There is this phrase that's going around all over the world, not just in Christian circles, but in business circles, executive leader circles. They're saying that the days of the lone heroic CEO are over. Now we need to move from I to we. Even businesses are saying we just can't have this superhero of a CEO because life is too complicated. Our world is changing too quickly, and we need to work in teams. We need to work in the body. We need to work with others, and so that we could go farther together. Here, I want to tell you is learn how to fail. Learn how to fail. I don't like failure. I hate it. In fact, I'm afraid of it. And I've lived a long portion of my life afraid of being embarrassed and fail and not making it. But you know who are the most creative and most successful people in our world? Those who fail. Edison, who made Thomas Edison, who invented the major one, who's credited with inventing the light bulb. He said that I have not made 10,000 mistakes. I have learned 10,000 ways not to make the light bulb. And one time he was with his apprentice, and he had a huge fire that destroyed all of his factory and all of his experiments and all of the progress he made. And he told his son, "Go get your mom and all the brothers and sisters. They're never going to see a fire like this." He said, "And next day, I'll start over again." Because the failure was actually something that pushed him forward. So follow up, don't give up, and don't go alone. Now, most of these points come from hopefully the Bible, but they also come from a skill that is growing and a profession that is growing all over the world. Coaching. You have mentors, and mentors are those that have something that you want to gain. They have the knowledge, they have the experience, they have the insight, and so they pour that into you. We need mentors. But a coach is a little bit different. A coach doesn't necessarily have to have the expertise in your subject of knowledge or what you're working on. In fact, it's sometimes better that they don't, because the coach is drawing out. If you are experienced, you're the only one that knows your life better than anybody else. And the answers to many of your questions are within you. You just can't pull them out. You can't see them because we're blind to that. And if God is in that process of listening well, asking good questions, focusing on next steps, what are you going to do with this action that you want to have? And then giving follow-up. That is what coaching is. Coaching is simply an ongoing, intentional conversation that empowers a group, a person or a group to fully live out God's calling. That's Christian coaching. It's also used in the world. So look back over these points, and all of those are just a coaching process so you can coach yourself. And in this transformation, I believe what we're asking for, looking for, is transformation. We want transformation in our world. We want transformation in our lives. We want transformation in our family. We want something different and better. And here's a transformational formula that we use. Transformation T, and I'm terrible at math, okay? So I actually didn't do very well with math, but transformation equals discovery, discovering the solutions, discovering maybe I can try this. What about this? What about a new thought that I haven't thought about? Discovery versus action, or plus action, taking a step, and then it doesn't matter if you succeeded or failed. You want to be reinforced in that. Was that a good step, or do I need to do something else? What did I learn from that? We learn by falling. We learn by failure. And then reinforcement, encouragement, and that's all empowered by the Holy Spirit. So I want to end with this. I've been told, I've been told this story that I'll tell you in a minute, but the fear of failure has been one of my biggest challenges. And I think we can say that it's in a lot of us. I'm reading Matthew now in my Bible reading, and Matthew in 3 chapters, 3, 4, and 5, or it's 4, 5, and 6, I believe. In each of those chapters, Jesus says, do not be afraid. Don't be afraid. Now, you can't just say to yourself, don't be afraid, but you recognize that there's fear there, but you take the step anyway. You keep moving forward anyway. And I've been told that gazelles are one of the fastest animals in their Serengeti and where they live and other places, one of the fastest animals. But the lions prey on the gazelles. But if a lion just tried to chase a gazelle, the gazelle would get away every time because they're faster. But they take the older lions and they put them in the tall grass, and the older lions that are slower and can't go as fast, they stay in this tall grass. And the young lions chase the gazelles, and they chase them right toward the older lions. And the older lions raise up, roar, and what do the gazelles do out of instinct? They turn right around and go right back into the young lion's catch or jaws. So that's the way they catch them. What the gazelles don't know is that if they just ran toward the roar, they could easily go past the older lions and be free. So whatever's causing you to say, I'm not going to take that risk, whatever's the roar in your head saying you can't be creative, run toward it. Run toward it with faith in God that even if you fail, He's going to pick you up, you're going to learn something, and you're going to keep going. May God bless you as you learn to be creative.
Thank you very much, Jarboe. I guess there are no questions. All right. So thank you very much, Jarboe, on biblical biblical creativity as mission. Tomorrow we'll be having another one from Professor Harford, and it will be Lessons from Afar, experiences that make a Christian university unique. And so those will be the sessions they will be having with us before they leave on Monday. This evening we have a service right here at 6:30. Our evening service will be here, and so all of you on campus are invited.
It feels like becoming an entrepreneur aside academics is never going to be possible when you're in school. Mainly because we feel that we are young and we don't have the resources and the guts to be one.
But if you believe in yourself and you have the passion to become an entrepreneur, then you already are.
Staying ahead in a highly competitive environment requires applying creativity and innovation to every aspect of your journey to becoming an entrepreneur.
Presently, entrepreneurship is driven by creativity and innovation to attain business objectives.
The explosion in technology, business, entrepreneurship, and consumption in this new era is as a result of the ongoing application of innovation.
Milton Bell once said, "If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door."
So if you are ready to be an entrepreneur, we are ready for you.